Hello and welcome to the Ghosts and Folklore podcast. I'm Mark Rees, and on each episode, I investigate a different, weird, and wonderful subject. And on this episode, I will be joined by a very special guest to discuss some ghost stories for Christmas. More specifically, Welsh ghost stories that take place in and around a particularly haunted location in West Wales. Because of course, Christmas is a time for ghost stories. Don't listen to anyone who tells you otherwise. Welsh folklore from the Victorian age tells us how people of all ages would gather around the fire, around the hearth, to tell spooky stories at this time of year. And of course, in the same century, in Victorian London, Dickens published A Christmas Carol, not to mention all his other annual Christmas ghost stories. It was an annual tradition, an annual money spinner, where Dickens and his contemporaries published classic ghost story after classic ghost story. And then, moving into the 20th century, when M.R. James keeps that tradition going, in fact makes it even scarier than ever with his ghost stories in Edwardian England. And I recorded a little something for the BBC last year along these lines, and they asked me beforehand what song they should play before I came on, expecting me to pick something suitably gruesome and creepy and gothic, but I went for Andy Williams's It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year, because, and don't worry, I'm not going to sing, but he does tell us that there'll be parties for hosting, marshmallows for toasting, and caroling out in the snow. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago. So, as Andy Williams sang in 1963, there'll be scary ghost stories. I'm not sure about the marshmallows, but there will be some scary ghost stories. I will be telling scary ghost stories, or rather, my guest will be telling scary ghost stories, because joining me is my very good friend, Ronnie Kerswell-O'Hara, who, as regular listeners will know, was also on the last episode talking about the Mari Lwyd and Christmas folklore. If you missed that, be sure to check it out afterwards. And Ronnie works for the National Trust in Dinefwr and Llandeilo, and she specialises in the same two subjects as the title of this podcast. She specialises in ghosts and folklore. She conducts the ghost tours around the stately home, one of which I recorded for this podcast a few years ago, and she also does the seasonal folkloric storytelling events, including Mari Lwyd get-togethers with her gang of dancers at this time of year. But anyway, that's enough build-up, enough preamble. Let's get Ronnie on the line and kick off this Christmas special, the final episode of the year, and what a spine-chilling finale it's going to be. And so, to begin at the beginning, is anybody there? Welcome back, Ronnie. And now we're going to turn our attention to even spookier things, towards the ghosts in Newton House and around Newton House, in and around Dinefwr. To start with, because I know I recorded episodes about this a few years ago now with you on about Newton House. For those who've maybe forgotten, who haven't heard it, can you explain Newton House very briefly to the newcomer?
So Newton House is part of the Dinefwr estate. It's called Newton House because it was the house of the new town, which came after the castle, Dinefwr Castle. So there's quite a lot of history on that site itself. The whole place was torched and razed to the ground. There was battles, bloodshed, and people trying to take the castle. So in general, there's a lot of weird energy in the place anyway. Newton House officially was completed in 1664, so it's a lot older than it looks. It looks Victorian. It's like me, Mark. It's older than it looks, you know.
and Victorian Gothic. I don't know if that applies as well.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that was that. You know, as we go on through houses, we always do them up, don't we? Particularly if you're a lord, it's really important to give your house a renovation because it's an old, ancient house. It looks like you've got no cash and no power. So over the years, the house has been renovated. We think part of the house might be from the 1400s as well. We found some evidence of that recently. So what I'm saying is that area there is quite old. There was a town there started around the 1300s. So that particular area where Newton House is very old. The castle area area is even older, and there was a Roman fort on the place. So that area of Llandeilo is really old. Yeah, very strange energy, actually, Mark. If you're walking around late at night in the summer, you find this glowing fog around Battlefield, as it was called. It's now called Castlefield. I like to think of that as the souls of the warriors that were slain.
Yes.
Rising up. And actually that links into the house itself, because loads of strange things happened around the place, bringing to it a welcoming energy, but also a strange energy, I'd say. Yeah.
It really is a wish list of what you'd want in a supposedly haunted place, isn't it? It's got all that sort of the old castle battlefield blood and slaughter side to it. Then you've got the aristocrats coming along, and the lords and the ladies, and the manor side of it, and it just kind of keeps building and it's layers, isn't it? It's very, very layered. I'm pretty sure I should look into this properly. I think I've got a distant ancestral link there as well, because it was Lord Rees, wasn't it? There, which is my surname. So I mean, maybe I've got a claim on the property at some stage. I don't know. We shall see.
If you have, Mark, just remember who your friends are. Do you know what I mean?
I could be your boss if it works out that way. Yeah. But we've mentioned, I mean, obviously I've been there overnight, sort of, and I know how spooky you can get there. You've got a lot more stories.
Sorry, I just interrupted you. You had a strange experience, though, didn't you, Mark, when you recorded the podcast? Wasn't there like a coldness in a doorway on the top floor around you and Bridie, who was helping me with the tour? Something happened to you, didn't it?
Yes, there was. What I found most interesting about that was almost the reactions of other people who were very kind of, maybe cocky's not the word, but very nonchalant. Going in at the start, they were like, yeah, whatever, ghosts, rubbish. Let's just go for a walk. And then by the end, they're a shivering mess. So that was probably the most interesting thing for me, is to watching the reactions of the brave people getting less brave as it went on. But yes, like, I've been there with I spent the night there once with Mari Paranormal as well, sort of good friends who've cropped up over the years on the podcast. But before, I thought, as it's Christmas, before we get into the really spooky things, I know there is a nice well, it's not even tenuous. It is a nice Christmas link, isn't there? With, if I just say the word baubles, can you explain the rest of it so people know what I'm on about?
Yeah, people love a bauble, don't they, Mark? So, yes. And actually, to link it back to Newton House, there's a couple of links backwards and forwards here. So, we found a few years ago some marks of protection in the house, basically on the western side. And my theory of that is, spirits apparently, according to folklore and other older religions, go to the west to lay down, So if you've got a house facing the west, people used to think that your house was under attack for some reason. The spirits might come back into your house. So we found, actually, it was Brian Hoggard who found them, because myself and Catherine Campbell, we've been trying to find them for years. And he just came, and he's the folklore wizard, or folklore magician, sorry, on Instagram. He's very obsessed with marks of protection and things like that, as we are. He found them. So basically a few marks of protection in the basement, scrawled into the walls. I'm sure we're going to talk about this later at some time in detail. But another way people used to protect houses, not necessarily Newton House, is that they would get a glass ball. It would be a mercury ball, or something that resembles something a bit more familiar, but on a bigger scale. They would hang these witches' balls, as they were called, outside their home, because they believed that if a witch would come, or any kind of spirit, any unwanted presence would come to their door, they would look at their reflection and be hypnotized by it. So this was more like, people would say more like something of a Halloween theme, really, like more supernatural and witchy. And when we started taking evergreens into the house, people wanted to protect their houses inside as well. So they brought the witches' balls in and hung them on the evergreen. So then we've got Christmas baubles.
so just so I got clear in my head then. So these baubles, I mean, they're bigger than the ones we think of now. It's more like a crystal ball kind of a size. And it's reflective.
Yeah, or bigger.
Or even bigger. And
even bigger.
And they would have been hung outside originally for the witches to see their reflection in. And they moved inside. Yeah. Hung on to keep the witches away from the trees, maybe, but hang on the trees. Yeah. Then.
Or just to keep them out of the house, really. So all these things happen, don't they? Like, things always get, from a more sinister place, should we say, they get turned into something happier and more comfortable for people. So, Christmas is like, people love it. It's comfortable. It makes them think of good things, really. So, yeah, that's they just came into the house, and now people associate them with Christmas. It's probably evolved over a long time, and it's a bit more complicated than I've explained. But yeah, so baubles, Mercury ball, huge fisherman's weights. You often see them outside the house on a doorstep. That was to stop an entity coming in, because people believed that entities could be really easily distracted and hypnotized. And would be more interested in looking at their face than going and causing havoc in somebody's life,
Yeah, so it's not just witches then. You say entities, anything that was considered malicious then he would keep away.
Yeah.
Although, of course,
energy.
Yeah. I mean, I always put my disclaimer in, because there's lots of witches listening to this, and I'm sure witches today absolutely love baubles. But we're talking about the stereotypical idea of the witch as the evil crone, rather than the modern version.
Yeah, I tend not to call them witches' balls, and I tend not to call the marks of protection witches' marks, because people. It gives the wrong idea of witches, and what people thought. There's a whole other conversation there anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, so I call them more like the protection. Balls of protection.
Balls of protection. It's what everyone needs for Christmas.
So to link this back to Dinefwr,
Yes.
Obviously we decorate the house. Well, I don't. I say we. It's a huge team that I just come in and admire their work afterwards as one of the workers.
You take the glory.
Well, I don't take the glory, but I will if you're offering it. Yes. Thanks. The house is looking amazing. So there's a wonderful flower volunteer called Alan. He does flowers for weddings as Coxton and Moss. Beautiful arrangements. He's one of my friends. And a few years ago, I had to update the ghost tour in Dinefwr because of this. A few years ago, he was. It always sounds really camp when I explain it, Mark, but he was adjusting his foliage on the fireplace.
Okay.
And somebody had messed with his baubles, and this is no lie. Like, the baubles that he just placed on the Christmas tree were behind him, and there was no one else in the house, because at this time of year, Dinefwr's shut in the weekdays and open at the weekends. But yeah, so the baubles that he just placed on a tree were behind him, and he said, "Is anyone messing with my baubles?" There was no answer because no one was there. He put them back on the tree, went back to attend to his bush, and then the baubles appeared behind him again. So, yeah. And then I saw...
That's a great story, because it veers into carry on territory in a way, but it's also maybe a piece of genuine phenomena.
Yeah, but interestingly, I said to you on a message last night that asked me about the baubles, because the baubles have been at it again, Mark. So one of my colleagues in Dinefwr, Ruth, she mentioned that the baubles have got a life of their own, seemingly, and they had leapt off the tree and weren't where they were supposed to be. So she's put them back, and now everyone is monitoring the baubles to see what happens next.
Are there cameras? Are there security cameras sort of primed onto the baubles? No, there's not.
No, unfortunately not. It would be good if there was, because then actually we'd pick up quite a lot of phenomenon. And actually, while we're talking about witches' baubles, I was doing a talk about the marks of protection and objects people use and talismans and rituals people do. I was doing a talk with Catherine. I was talking about the witches' balls, and suddenly on the table in front of the audience of people there, 30 plus people, and myself and Catherine, it was a huge bang on the table behind us, because I made a little display of all these weird collection of things I've got. And everyone heard this bang. Like, no one saw anything move. I looked at the table. I was really confused because nothing had moved. But it literally sounded like something had lifted up one of the balls and slammed it back down. And obviously they're made of glass. It didn't break, but it was just really, really strange. So that was in front of people. My baubles were messed with as well, Mark.
Yes. See, that is a nice Christmas lead into it, isn't it? And I'm sure I'm sure the phenomena is going to get much, much scarier as we sort of broaden it and look at the sort of the Halloween stuff and the other ones. So when we first spoke about this, well, I say spoke, when I joined you on a tour that I recorded a few years ago, as you mentioned, there were cold spots and there were people getting freaked out. Is it fair to say the more you've done these tours, the more you've been able to pick up on what's going on, and in a way, things have escalated. Is that the right word to say
Yeah.
in years that have gone past? Can you sort of expand on that?
Yeah, it's really weird because when we used to do them in the day, when my friend Nick Brunger used to do the tour in the evening, we used to get him in to do the tour specially. I felt like if we were talking about strange phenomena, the house would feel strange afterwards. And some of the managers who are in work now in the weekdays when we're not open, they say the house feels like it's changed in some way or like some energy's been stirred up. And myself and Holly, actually one of the managers, we usually go round after Halloween and place like a thank you in the house somewhere, like just something random like rosemary wrapped in, some lavender, you know what I mean? Just to say, calm down now, we're finished with you for the year. But most of the time, I feel like the energies get, the more we talk about it, I'm sure if there is anything on the afterlife or anyone in the house that wants us to know they're there, because I don't know, is it lonely on the other side, Mark? Do we want to know if we're dead? Do we want people to know we're there? Maybe we do. And the more we talk about it, the more things happen. So is it like somebody's there and they want to get our attention and we're talking about them and they know we know about them, but they're just trying to say, we're here? I don't know. I think that could be an explanation for it. I mean, on Halloween itself, there's always a group of people that I call the Halloween family that come on the tour, because we do a few days around Halloween, but there's always a group of people that meet up on the second tour of Halloween, because we did two a night. And there's one particular family that come every year, and there's one person in that family who seems to be targeted by the energy.
Right, and they keep coming back.
Yeah, they do. I mean, we didn't do it this year. They came on my tour in Llandeilo. Gladly, nothing happened to them in Llandeilo because we're out in the open there. Anything could have happened. But the first time they came, I think you were on that tour as well, Mark. And there were strange things happening, wasn't there? Like doors rattling, winds, a musical box sort of sound. And I seem to recall this person looking out of one of the doorways that leads from the drawing room into the hallway and the door slamming in his face. So the year after that, the family came back, and I thought, oh, they come back for more. We were walking through one of the rooms upstairs, the room where you felt the cold spot. It's on the top floor. It was labelled Lady Selina's room because it's got a lovely fancy Georgian bed alcove in that room. It's got no way of wind coming into the room. There's no chimney or fireplace in that room. And as we walked into the room, a huge poster tube flew off the shelf in front of this family, in front of this person, and just flew off at him. So that was weird.
Yeah.
And then last year, 2024, there was some particularly weird energy in the house. In the room below that, there's a room on the first floor, which there seems to be a lot of the time static energy in the room. And that last year, the TVs kept going on to static, even though we made sure we'd switch them off at the socket, which we were finding really weird. And it was kind of messing with your head. You were kind of feeling a bit spun out because you knew you just turned it off and there it was on. It was like the TV people, Mark, on Poltergeist, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to go, oh, who's there? Do you know what I mean? So, so we went in the room and there was this weird energy and static, and this TV was on static. So strange energy going on.
Have you gone down the route of actually trying to determine who or what that might be? So you haven't sort of taken psychics in there or anything like that to try and make contact, or you just, it's an energy, and at the end of it, we leave a present, say thank you, we'll be back next year, and move on.
Yeah, but there is certain things that we don't know for sure, obviously, because we're not psychic. But there is certain things that have happened there, that a name comes forward. I don't know. I'm not a psychic, but I keep getting there's the boy in blue, which I think if anyone's heard that podcast before, they might have heard about the child wearing blue that's often seen. Interestingly, there's a pestle which is out there. The Reese family had to sell all their possessions and sell the house, which is how the National Trust bought it then a few years later. But then some of their possessions are out there, including this pastel, very important picture of who would then go on to be the Lord Dinefwr, the third Baron, George, as a child, and then his brother, William, who died, and a dog. So that picture's out there. Interestingly, the way George looks in this picture, he's a boy wearing blue with blonde hair, slightly long hair like a girl. And that is a description that people say they've seen of the boy in blue in the house. Boy wearing blue with blonde hair like a girl. So I find that quite interesting. I mean, we always assume that the ghost of the child must be a child who's died and their spirit's trapped. But why can't they be somebody that was really happy in the house as a child, and they've returned in spirit form as a child, because it's like when they're happiest, So it's quite interesting. But that is the description, people. So maybe the child is George. I did a private tour this year for some young farmers, actually. And we were on the top floor. We were on the stairwell on the top floor, about to go through what people know as Creepy Corridor, which is a very dark corridor. And it passes 2 doorways, which we think belonged to the late Dowager Rice, which would have been the wife of this George, actually, the mother of George the Fourth Baron, who renovated the place. He named these rooms after the place was renovated as the late Dowager Rice's rooms. So she's obviously, his mother's died, but he's kept the rooms a bit like, I want to say Psycho, Mark, a bit like a gig. Rooms, like for his mum, he's named them as my dead mum's rooms, basically. And so everyone finds that corridor a bit spooky, and we were just about to go through the door when I said, actually, no, these young farmers, they're supposed to be brave, they're like teenagers, and there were 2 that were like a bit of bravado, and I don't know why, I just pointed at this kid. I went, you can go first. And he was wearing blue, and I went, oh, you're wearing blue, how funny, the boy in blue. And I said, what's your name? And he said, George.
Ooh.
Our George, who had blonde hair, was the boy in blue. He was wearing blue. He led the way. And after that, he was a bit shaken, as you described earlier, Mark, a bit shaken and a bit less bravado.
It's amazing what an hour walking around a haunted house could do to people's bravado, isn't it?
It is.
And you do find, we were doing this investigation recently in a pub in Neath called the Duke, and he was telling us there that, he's had rugby players in, he's had the Welsh internationals in there, and even they get a bit freaked out at certain points in certain places. So, it just goes to show, doesn't it, that physical strength doesn't really mean much when you're in situations like this. But you mentioned the children, because there's an interesting painting within Newton House, isn't there, with... Ooh. You know where this is going, don't you? It's the portrait of the children, but with some of them have been painted over with black paint because they're the children who have passed away. Which I believe is quite a standard practice back in the day. But it's a creepy painting, isn't it, to have at the top of the stairs when you walk up and see it.
Well, I've got an update for you now, Mark.
Okay.
So the update is there's no children painted in the picture. No children painted out, I should say.
So those what look like to be outlines there where it looks like an artist has painted over. They're not children then. Are they just a trick of the light, or?
Yeah. So literally, this is always good because we always like to debunk things that we think are, and this was folklore in Newton House for many years amongst the staff, even before I got there, that's there were children. And like you say, in Victorian times, they used to love it, didn't they? They used to paint the dead children, but before that, they would have painted them out, not to exist anymore. But we had the picture x-rayed because it's very interesting. Joseph Gorston, who was an art collector in the 1700s, described it as the single worst picture he'd ever seen of children. And if anyone's seen it, they look terrible though, Mark, don't they? They don't look cherubic, do they? They look quite sinister.
They do, but I was just putting it into context and thinking, well, there are Renaissance pictures of Jesus who looks a bit terrifying, but that's just the limit of their skills, isn't it? But yes, maybe I'm being too kind on the artist.
But I think that was because children didn't generally sit, did they? They wouldn't sit still, and painters are used to painting adults' faces, so they painted them looking like a bit more adult, should we say, than children. Yeah. So we always thought it was quite interesting. So Kevin, who's the house collections officer, suggested that would be a painting that we could get x-rayed and basically look into why people are saying children have been painted out. So there has been a lot of overpainting on it. We saw close up before he sent it off, me and Kevin and some other members of staff. I had a real chance to look at the painting on there, and somebody thinks they're an artist somewhere in time. They've repainted the cherub bow. You know, the kids are often painted with Eros's bow, aren't they, to make them seem really innocent. So somebody's overpainted that. The bowl of cherries one of the girls holding to symbolise fertility has been really badly overpainted. The cherries, obviously, that were there have been restyled, shall we say. We don't know what hand. And there was some damage in the picture. So interestingly, the damage would be the exact space for two eyes. And then there's a line underneath that where it looks like it had been folded, which would be current where mouth would be. So that is interesting because, you know, when you look at a tree and you see a face in the tree, or people can see faces in fridges and car grills, I think that's what happened. And, you know, and yeah, there was that practice, obviously, of painting children out of pictures, but I think it's not the case so much in this, actually. It's quite disappointing. I was disappointed because I wanted there to be.
Yeah, I mean, I've been telling that anecdote for years now, so that's killed it. But on the plus side, it's not very often I get to veer off into art history on a folklore podcast. So it's nice to be able to shoehorn some art history in, even if it is dispelling the spookiness. So we'll have to make it even spookier because you mentioned that because you've been doing these every year now for a good few years, every Halloween, these tours in Newton House. But this year you did something different, didn't you? And well, it's probably best if you explain again, isn't it?
So in light of everything that happened last year, and actually I should add, last year we did something different. I had a REM pod. You know what a REM pod is, don't you? For benefit of...
I was going to say, yeah, for the benefit of those listening.
Yeah, so if people don't know what a REM pod is, it's like just a device, basically. It works on magnetic frequencies. If you get near to it, so they've got some lights on top that flash. If there's a change in the magnetic frequency around it, I'd say, you need to be quite close up for it and holding the antenna for an alarm to sound. So I was placing them around the house last year, which might have encouraged some activity. We put it in the oldest part of the house, which was what we were calling the bunkhouse, which in reality in the 1400s would have been a hall building. In the upstairs of this hall building where there's been really weird things happen, I thought it'd be a really good idea to place this REM pod on the table. And as I was placing it on the table, literally it went off as I was walking away. I was like literally 2 meters away from it, and the alarm and the lights were flashing. There was quite a lot of bad language. There is a little clip of that if anyone wants to scroll on the past timer and can handle a few bad language things being shouted. So that was on the table. So we were sort of encouraging the activity. And I think it was felt this year that it all needed to calm down a little bit. Maybe we give it a break, you know, just to sort of thank you, house, for showing us whatever's here, but we're going to let you have a rest for a year. So I thought, I was a bit, you know, I love doing things around Halloween. You know, people who heard the podcast before know that everything I've done in life has been Halloween type theme. So I thought, I'll look into Llandeilo, because Llandeilo is one of our oldest towns, and there must be some weird stuff going on in Llandeilo. So I did some tours around Llandeilo with my friend Brooke. We looked into all the old newspaper clippings. My friend Reese that I mentioned earlier, he was helping me with that because he loves to do research. And we found some really weird things going on, from phantom carriages driving at breakneck speed up into town, you know, funeral corsages driving with the horses' noses flaring, and people have seen these going up the bridge into town, to other phenomena like corpse candles. That's quite famous in the area. All the old diarists of the time would write them quite a lot into their stories, and Anne Beale, that wrote like a fictional tale about Llandeilo itself, mentions them quite a lot, to weird phenomena happening in the church, all kinds of things, and gruesome finds as well. So it's quite interesting to poke around into Llandeilo and see what was going on there.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bridge there, and I imagine you say the word Llandeilo and people, you know, living miles away might not be familiar with it, but it's popped up on quite a few television shows and films and things recently, hasn't it? There was the big one with what was the name of the one with Timothy Spaulding? Do you remember the detective series on BBC?
Yeah.
I'll find out.
They were talking about the famous picture of Turner's of the bridge.
Of course,
the
Turner.
Bridge.
Yeah. Long before TV. Yeah, Turner was there. Yeah.
Yeah, so he did obviously a tour around the country, but he painted the former Llandeilo Bridge. So as far as we know, there might have been three bridges there. The one people think is the most famous is the seven-span bridge, that quite got washed away quite a lot. And there was some hideous disasters that happened on there because as far as people know, it was made by Rhys ap Thomas, or paid for, to connect Dinefwr, his estate there, with Derwydd, with other places around that were all his land that was given to him. So he may have asked for that bridge to be constructed around the 14 or 1500s. That bridge lasted to the 1800s, where it was deemed that because of all these tragedies that were happening, the bridge was too thin for anyone to be passing, walking or on horse, passing a carriage. And there's quite a lot of tragedies where people were killed by a carriage trying to squeeze past them, or they were thrown off the bridge by horses. There's one particular tale of a doctor who'd been at a Sunday mass, and his family, he wasn't in the carriage at the time, they drove back to towards Derwydd, and they all died because suddenly something happened on the bridge where the horse took fright and bolted down the bridge. But because the bridge was so thin, the you know, can you imagine being in that carriage actually holding on for dear life? And it was the doctor's wife, daughter, and the boy driving the carriage, and they all died basically. The horse bolted off the side of the bridge, broke its neck. The wife was killed instantly. It's not quite clear what happened to the boy driving the carriage, but it's assumed he died. And the daughter was taken to one of the inns that were on the bridge to try and recover, and she died as well a day later. So and that was when they commissioned the new bridge. But because there's been such a lot of weird energy on that bridge, and water seems to attract the weird energy, people say that bridge in particular is haunted, even though it's a new bridge now. New bridge was made. So weird.
Yes, and you're crossing over that bridge, aren't you? To sort of enter Llandeilo. It's like you are entering, and I do like the way there you managed to get some more art history in with Turner as well. So that was a nice little, a nice little segue. So
I don't know anything about art history though, but yeah,
that's okay.
that's the same picture. Yeah.
It was a nice accident, wasn't it? Of these places then, because when you're doing the tour, I'm assuming, do you sort of you take people to the bridge and tell them the story at the bridge, so you can say that this is where this tragedy happened?
Yeah, so I planned a little route, you know, that takes us around the oldest part of the town because, as anyone knows, towns are built around churches. The oldest building probably in a village is the church. So the village is constructed around the churches and the markets as well. So we go around the oldest part of the town. There are some properties that are haunted, people's houses, but obviously we can't go in depth in those places unless we've got the homeowner's permission, and we certainly couldn't stand outside and go, oh yeah, that's haunted, and everyone look in their window when they're watching Strictly or something. Do you know what I mean?
And your property price plummets afterwards.
Yeah, but there's one particular property. I know people do live there. I don't know the people that live there, but it's quite famous. It's the King's Head. And as you drive into town, it's at the top of Bridge Street. And there's meant to be a few entities there, in particular the entity of a girl, a serving maid who fell to her death from one of the high windows. We're assuming on this roadside because that's quite high up. And she was pursued by a man who was, you know, coming on strong to her, shall we say, and she didn't want his advances, so she fled upstairs and he fell out the window trying to get away from him. Was she pushed, Mark? Or was she voluntarily fell? Was it an accident? But people pick up on that energy of the girl. I mean, I met somebody the other day that said they'd been to a few weddings at that place when it was a pub, and in most of the pictures there's like a yellow shade, like a yellow energy, a yellow mist in some of the pictures that is not in the same place. It moves around. So that's the energy people associate with that girl, actually.
That's an interesting one. And that's something you could... What I love about these public places is somebody could just go there tomorrow. They could go there now, couldn't they? Pop in, have a drink, and see if they sense anything themselves. Take some photos, see what comes out.
Yeah, unfortunately, can't at the King's Head because it's no longer a pub.
Okay, don't go there today then.
Yeah, it was a National Trust office for a while, but there is places like the Corridor, and I went in there a few times to probe the bar staff, and quite a few of them, and you know, people that had been working there in the kitchen, said no, it's not haunted. But on one lucky evening after one of the tours, I had to update the tour the next day. Actually, a barman that was working there said that he often hears people in the cellar when he's working in the cellar, and at one particular moment he thought it was actually it was so real to him that he thought somebody was there. He thought it was a work colleague. The corridor's very old as well. The courtyard's there. Guests complain of the sound of horses and people talking late into the night. So so you could go to the corridor. You could sit out in the courtyard late at night, see if you can feel or sense horses or anything like that there. And there's quite a few other buildings in the town and even in the streets that people say they feel weird sensations in. So particularly the Bridge Street, yeah.
And of those, without spoiling your tour at all, have you got a favourite you can tell us about? And maybe you can not give away the ending if that makes it better.
Oh, I think you're talking about my little Scooby-Doo ghost, are you, Mark? I think I told you about that.
That's my line is the Scooby-Doo, but you've got a Scooby-Doo as well, haven't you?
I have. I think every good thing should have a Scooby-Doo ghost. So you've got the sinister side, and then you always get this one tale. So there was a tale of in Llandeilo. There was in the 1800s. There was a blackouts because no one could work out who would pay the gas lighter or pay for the oil or the wicks. So for a few decades, actually, quite a long time, it was in darkness around the I can't remember the exact date, early 1800s. I want to say 1840s. So at this point in time, women, and there was a finishing school for girls in Abbey Terrace, I think it's called. So there was quite a lot of young girls in this terrace, and they reported being chased down the street by an entity with a billowing white, feel about it, chasing them down the streets and frightening them to their wits, so they had to fall on the floor. Sometimes the ghost grabbed at them, the spectre chased them. It was quite a frightening affair. So some brave men went to apprehend the ghost. And they found the ghost sitting casually on the wall of the church, in Llandeilo Church, St. Tylo Church. And they apprehended the ghost, shall we say. And I am going to spoil the ending for this because it does, people in America might want to know what happens, mightn't it?
Yes, it might take them a while to get you from Chicago, wherever they're coming from.
I mean, they can start coming over now. They'll be ready for Halloween. But yeah, so they apprehended this ghost, and it turns out it was a gentleman who lived in Church Street in Llandeilo. They whipped off the white sheet he was wearing and found a pair of bellows that he was using to billow out make his own special effects, shall we say.
Yeah.
And they took him for a dunking in the river to serve him right, punished the ghost.
It's a lovely, it's a very poetic ending, and he goes for a dunking. It's not the witches, it's the men pretending to be ghosts that get dunked in Llandeilo.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's hilarious, that they punished the ghost. They served him right for messing around and scaring those poor young ladies witless.
Excellent. And then going back to Newton House, I guess, to sort of wrap things up, we mentioned if people are going to fly in from Chicago or wherever they might be in the world and they come to visit, obviously there's the Halloween events that take place. But in theory, there's nothing stopping anyone from just turning up whenever. Well, they could turn up and January the 3rd and see you with Mari Lwyd, but they could turn up any day of the year, couldn't they? And do their own little investigation. They can wander around. They can see what they feel, what they sense. Any tips or tricks? Would you recommend any techniques, any days of the week, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm there, I'll generally tell people things. Nigel and Wendy, super volunteers. They are well into this. They might be listening now, Mark, actually, because they're so into it. So if they come on a Monday or a Thursday, they can see Nigel and Wendy, and if they give them a special smile, a special wink, Nigel and Wendy will tell them all about these things because they've been on the tours with us and experienced the things as well. So Mondays and Thursdays are good, and whenever I'm up there, I don't mind telling people things. But if people just want to sit quietly, things happen. Random moments. We've had people sitting in the cafe, enjoying a nice little coffee when they've felt an unseen hand touch them on the leg. Generally, it's women, actually. My theory on that is because the cafe was built as a billiard room, and it's not really expected for ladies to be in there unless they're in there for entertainment.
Yes, unless they're there to have their legs touched. Yeah.
Yeah, so some lord of the past maybe is getting a bit excited because there's a young filly in there. Yeah, so I think that's why. Do you know what I mean? That's why a lot of the things in that area are directed at ladies. So if you're a lady and you want to feel something weird, go into the cafe and enjoy a nice drink and sit calmly. And who knows, you might experience an unseen hand touching your leg as well.
If that's the kind of thing you want. If not, maybe just get a takeaway and don't linger too long.
Yeah,
But
get the hell out of there if you don't want that happening.
excellent. So it sounds like they can ask you if you're about then, Ronnie. And I mean, I know the volunteers there are amazing. So give the volunteers a cheeky wink, and they can tell you all the ghost stories and show you around. And who knows what people might find taking it forward.
Yeah, I think just sitting there and listening though is a good one because you know when people are busy looking around and everything, your mind is taken off, you know, the quiet, and it's the quiet that we hear: footsteps, doors slamming, muffled voices, lights going on and off. You know, all those little subtle things that you wouldn't necessarily notice unless you were sitting there having a quiet moment, should we say? And who knows, Mark? They might have their baubles touched.
Yes, if they're lucky, if they're lucky. One thing we haven't mentioned thinking about it, and I'm assuming I spoke about this a few years ago in the older episodes, but it's a nice one we should mention, is of course the cat in the, well, you know where this is going. Do you want to explain that one quickly? Because that's something for people to look out for, isn't it?
Yeah, so that is upstairs. It's on the eastern wall, facing the east. It's in the floorboards, and for many years it was covered over with floorboards. Then Holly, who is one of our managers there, she had an amazing idea to get it conserved over lockdown. So this dried cat is visible for anyone to go and see. Dried cat is a really special thing. It's basically put in the house to protect the house, and we're not quite sure what it's there to protect against. Some people believe that it was to protect the house against spiritual mice or spiritual like rodents or anything annoying like that. The cat wasn't sacrificed. It's really important to say. None of these dried cats that are found around houses and properties in the UK and other places, they've not been sacrificed for the purpose of looking after the house in the afterlife. They've been specially chosen because maybe they were a good hunter in their lifetime. This cat was really inspected, should we say. It's got a broken tooth, as far as I know, broken claw, so that might indicate that it was a good hunter in its life. So after it passed away naturally, it was wrapped up really carefully in some cloth and placed in this position to protect the house. An eastern wall of a house is particularly vulnerable to attack, Mark, because it goes back to really ancient practices and religions where the sun is born in the east, and then as it goes across the sky, it goes to die in the west. So anything on the east, they're assuming from the living can cross over to the dead world on the west. So if your house is facing the east, in particular, you might have an entity traveling through your house to try and get to the land of the dead. And that's why old people used to have windows open on the western side. So if an entity was trapped in the house, it could still get out and continue its journey to the land of the dead. But the fact they've got this cat on the eastern side might suggest that they were particularly trying to protect the house from anything unwanted, spiritually undead coming in and penetrating the house. So it's quite interesting, really, the position of it. And it's actually... I could do a lot of gestures. I've just noticed I'm doing the lintel of the doorway here.
Most people won't see them. That's okay.
But yeah, where it is in the floorboard, directly below that is the doorway to the house. So it's above the door, literally, as people walk in. It's on the floor above, but it's above the door. So it's protecting the doorway, really. So,
yes. Yeah. And if people want to look, it's not sort of glaringly obvious, but if people want to look, they can go over and they can see it.
Yeah.
And
it's...
I was just going to say, there's a lesson there, isn't there? If you're going to build a house, get a compass first to make sure it's all in order.
Yeah, it's interesting how they used to face these old houses, though, isn't it? You know, the back of the house backed onto the land of the dead, but the side that you want to greet the sun is always on the east side. If you've got enough money to plan it that way, that is.
Of course, yes. Yeah, building my own house isn't something I'm planning quite yet. Excellent. Well, thank you, Ronnie. And we've spoken lots about Christmas, Halloween, but of course you are spooky all year round. You've mentioned the pastimer and stuff. So if anyone did want to keep up to date with you, to say hello, to follow your adventures, what would you recommend they do? Just
go on Instagram, say hello. I put random things on there. I spend my days off looking for awful things. My most recent find is a bell in Carmarthen, Mark. Apparently it was on the back of the old courthouse, and it was tolled when the verdict of death was announced. So they were told. So if people want to know about horrific historical events, weird stuff, loads of weird jobs in history that are quite horrible, supernatural events, and of course I mentioned that REM pod, the sweary REM pod recording is on there. Yeah, so they have to scroll quite back for 2024 Halloween for that one, but if they don't mind the swearing, it's on there. Yeah,
they won't mind the swearing. So that's past timer. One word, isn't it? Past timer.
Yeah, the past timer.
The past timer.
Yeah.
Is the past timer someone else without the?
I don't know. I quite like a the. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I quite like a the. Makes you feel important.
Well, it's punk rock as well, isn't it? It was the whole punk thing was, you had to be the Sex Pistols, the Exploited, you needed that the start of the name.
Damned, Mark, one of my favourite bands.
The Damned, yes, yeah.
The Cramps.
The Cramps, yes, yeah.
Classic. All the classics have got a the, so I need a the,
Exactly. Back to your Riot Girl days, yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Ronnie. And
thank you so much, Mark.
An epic two-part series, I nearly said there. We've had so much talking to do. And I will see you very soon for some Mari Lwyd action. And Merry Christmas, Nadolig Llawen.
Yeah, and enjoy, everyone, enjoy Mark's cruising.
I haven't explained my cruising yet. I'll explain that afterwards. People are going to be wondering what we're talking about now.
It's a cliffhanger, Mark, isn't it?
It's a cliffhanger, yeah, which I will spoil momentarily. Excellent. Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye. All of which brings me to the end of another episode and another year of the Ghosts and Folklore podcast. If you'd like more from Ronnie, as mentioned, we did a ghost hunt together back on episode 76, but it's best to listen to episode 75 first. That's the secrets of Newton, because that one explains all the history behind the hauntings in wonderful Newton House before we go exploring in episode 76. And of course, she was also on the last episode talking about the Mari Lwyd. And you can catch Ronnie and her Mari Lwyd gang in action on January the 3rd in Dinefwr. Now, this episode is something of a Christmas bonus. I usually release one episode a month, but there are 2 episodes this month because, it's the season for giving and all of that. But on the downside, there will be no episode next month. Giving with one hand and taking with the other, I'm so sorry. If you want the long, boring reason why, next year I do start a little sideline giving talks on cruise ships. So yes, I'll be talking on a cruise ship in January. Just imagine booking your perfect holiday after Christmas and you find out you're stuck on a boat with me for a couple of weeks. But no, in all seriousness, I'm really looking forward to it. I've already had some nice messages from listeners who I know will be on some of these cruises, which is quite bonkers really, because this is the first time I've mentioned it publicly. They must have seen me on some travel websites or brochures or something and still bought a ticket anyway. But that's my excuse. There'll be no episode next month. I'll be out talking on a cruise, but I will be back to normal as soon as I can, late January, early February, and as always, if you don't want to miss that episode, the first episode of the new year, please consider pressing the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this episode, you can support the podcast by rating it, reviewing it, and telling your friends all about it. It's free, and it all really does help. And if you really, really enjoyed it, and you want to support it going forward, you can treat me to a coffee, a nice festive gingerbread coffee maybe, via my website. Just go to the website, click on Buy Mark a Coffee, and that's always very much appreciated. If you'd like more Ghosts and Folklore, you can follow me on social media. And as well as this podcast, I've also written a number of books about similar weird and wonderful subjects which are available from all good bookshops, offline and on. And it just so happens I have a new book coming out in the new year. More about that on the next episode. And on that note, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for listening to this episode and every episode this year. Diolch yn fawr iawn am wrando ar y benod hwn a phob penod arall eleni. I've been Mark Rees. This has been my Ghosts and Folklore podcast, beaming to you from Wales to the world. And remember, much like Slade, ghost stories are for life, not just for Christmas. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Nadolig Llawen a blwyddyn newydd dda. and God bless us, everyone. Until next time, Nosta.